From the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha, Consider This with Kathy Wyatt, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
Do you know what the Turing test is?
Yeah, I know what the Turing test is. It's when a human interacts with a computer, and if the human doesn't know they're interacting with a computer, the test is passed.
And what does a pass tell us?
That the computer has artificial intelligence. Are you building an AI?
I've already built one. And over the next few days, you're going to be the human component in the Turing test.
Holy
Yeah, that's right, Caleb. You got it. Because if that test is passed, you are dead center of the greatest scientific event in the history of man.
If you've created a conscious machine, it's not the history of man. That's the history of gods.
Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to the 27th season and this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, artificial intelligence. Joining us to talk more about it are UNO's Victor Winter, a full professor in the Department of Computer Science, and Dr. Jackie Lindberg, Associate Vice Chancellor for Innovative and Learning-Centric Initiatives. Thank you both for being here and welcome.
Glad to be here.
Thank you.
Okay, Victor, I have to start with you. That clip from a 2014 film called Ex Machina. Plot, what is it?
So it's as a computer scientist, first of all, it's the type of movie that I really like. But it's ultimately about sentience. What does it mean to be sentient, and is it possible for silicon, right, a computer, to be sentient? That's the question. So the original Turing test, right? You had a conversation sort of behind a curtain. Think of it like an email exchange, and from that text-based information only, can you decide what you're interacting with? Is it a person or is it a machine? And since then, computers have gotten enormously more capable, and so the goalposts have shifted, right? So now it becomes more of, do you have, in this movie, right, do you have emotion? Do you have self-awareness? Are you able to deceive? Things like this, right? So it's sort of a whole higher level of the Turing test, if you will.
Okay.
Fascinating movie.
Turing test, Turing also the name of one of 5 of the founders. Briefly walk us through, as we're putting up photos here, the history of artificial intelligence.
All right, so I would say that there's sort of 2 parallel kinds of technologies that got developed. The original artificial intelligence is more of a philosopher-based, think Socrates, where you have logic, the kind of stuff that you actually would learn in a philosophy class, right? And so you have the mechanization of that. And then there are advances where maybe if you represent knowledge in a cleverer way, you can get better results. And then maybe you add to this some kind of an intelligence search, right? So all of that kind of calculation is fairly well understood conceptually, algorithmically. And one of the limitations that technology has, it's a strength and a limitation, is that it does not learn on its own. It does not evolve, right? It is what it is. And so alongside that technology, there was another kind of artificial intelligence, and this was based on a model of the human brain cell, of synapse and neurons and so on, and how they interact. So it was starting off with a very simple model of a human brain. And this technology was not particularly interesting in the early years of computing, like during the 60s and 70s, because computers weren't very powerful. Then in the 80s, they got a little bit better, but it was really only recently when you have this enormous computing power at our fingertips, right? It's unbelievable. Like the fastest computer in the 70s is thousands of times less powerful than your cell phone, right? So we're talking that kind of a shift. And it was when a certain threshold of computational power was reached that these machine learning models took off. And they have taken off incredibly quickly. And they have, what distinguishes them from the original, the standard classical AI, the Socrates kind of AI, is that they can learn. and they can evolve, and they can start being able to do things that people didn't know that they could, or that wasn't necessarily planned. And Ex Machina, in some sense, reaches into that space a little bit too, right? The movie, but so with these systems able to learn on their own, right? You suddenly have a whole new ballgame. And as technology gets more and more powerful, and as these designs get cleverer, we're hitting this tipping point. It really is, I would say, we're at the dawn of a new age. And that's not an understatement. You know, companies like NVIDIA have said, which is $1 trillion company, right? They've said that they believe that the impact of this technology will be greater than the internet, broadband, and the smartphone combined. Right? You cannot, in the tech space, you cannot set a bar that's higher than that. And they aren't the only company that believes this, right? So it is breathtaking. As a computer scientist, I've seen all of this. I know Moore's law, but what I'm seeing now is off the charts.
Okay, I have to ask it, Victor. What is your history with this? I mean, how did you get so involved and obviously passionate about this topic?
Well, I used to. Well, I'm a computer scientist, first of all, right? I've seen disruptive, and I'm also a musician, so I've seen disruptive technology when music synthesizers, you know, this kind of stuff happened. I've seen how quickly things can change. I used to work at Sandia National Labs, so weapons, high consequence systems kind of labs, where these kinds of changes in disruptive technologies become really critical. And I also played chess, and I saw what happened in the chess world, right? And the chess world is a really good lesson learned that we seem to not quite be learning as much as we should. In chess, they kept saying if a computer could only play this well, it would be intelligent. And then when it achieved this, they kept moving the goalposts. And they got to the end where if the computer could only beat every last person on Earth in chess, then, only then, would it be considered intelligence. And that happened in '97, right? And the year before, when Kasparov, he was then world champion in chess, in 1996, right, he said a computer would never be world champion in chess, never. And his argument was because it lacked a soul. And you know you are at the last frontier. If that's your fallback, you have kind of nothing beyond that, right? That's the final. And then the next year, traditional AI beat Garry Kasparov. And now the machine learning stuff is so much more powerful that at least then it was a close match. Nowadays, a human will never beat one of these machines, never.
Does your brain ever rest? I'm just wondering.
It's so much fun. I'm a Star Trek fan. Oh
my gosh.
And I've just been waiting for this. For me, this is like Star Trek level stuff. And I tell my wife, you know, I have a Spock outfit, and I feel like I should wear it when I'm interacting with ChatGPT and Gemini and stuff. It's so amazing. Yeah.
I can't imagine what our viewers are thinking right now. But with your whole, you know, Spock. Okay, anyway, I'm going to keep going. 3 types of artificial intelligence. We're going to put a graphic up for our viewers. Okay. As we're doing that, tell us what's important to know about these.
Okay, so the narrow intelligence, right? The artificial narrow intelligence is, if you think of chess. Chess is a good one because it's a constrained space. For those kinds of systems, you can have rule-based, you can have, and if you get focused on a narrow problem, you can get amazing results. The artificial general intelligence is kind of, we're getting into sort of the ChatGPT kind of realm at this point, right? So the they call it AGI in tech circles, right? This AGI stuff, I would say that most experts wouldn't say we're quite there yet, but ChatGPT 5 may be approaching this. Gemini, just to tell you, Gemini Ultra, so if you use Google Bard, the publicly available version, that's Pro, Gemini Pro. That's the middle one. Gemini Ultra is their top shelf one. And they have tested it, I think, on 50 subjects, whatever, and it tests at the domain expert level in all 50, right? And so, but we don't consider that fully general AI yet, but it's approaching this. ChatGPT 5 is supposed to be another critter altogether. And then if we go to the last one is super intelligence, right? And that is the world fundamentally changes at that point. And so one can speculate whether one hits that, when or if one hits this, but there are so many things that can happen before this. Again, think of chess. If you say, I have a ChatGPT that is as good as the best experts in all subject matters, would you consider that superintelligence, right? And depending on what definition you use, they would say, not quite. It has to be better than all, right? So this is this, but approaching this, you will see transformative stuff, right? You have, for example, they've done like verbal IQ tests on ChatGPT-4 and stuff. It's on par with Nobel laureates, right? So, and we're still moving the goalpost further in what it is that we want, right? So,
as long as we're on a roll here, let's go into some other terms. We're just kind of setting the stage here. So we'll put another graphic up for our viewers. You can either reference those or talk about terms that you think are important, or both, maybe.
So machine learning and deep learning. So deep learning is a kind of machine learning, a particular architecture. And for the viewers, if you go to TensorFlow Playground, it's a website. You can build little neural networks. They're really easy to build. Everything's interactive, and you can run them. And so you can do machine learning. You can create a small deep learning neural network and have it solve certain kinds of problems for you. It's really fun. And it's easy to use too, honestly. I'm not just saying this as a computer scientist.
Well, I was going to ask you why it's so important for Nebraskans to know about this topic. Other than it's really fun,
right.
Victor, what would you say in terms of that?
So Nebraska, I believe that its tech footprint, the space where tech can impact Nebraska, is fairly diverse, right? So we have agriculture, which at first blush you would say like, well, that's not tech. But if you talk about food production and doing things more efficiently, it's suddenly very, very tech, right? So it has that. We have significant military tech capabilities here, right, in the state. We have some Fortune 500 companies. We have insurance industry, which is going to be majorly impacted by all of the reports by this technology. But you also have like transportation, Union Pacific and stuff like this. So it will impact all walks of life. I firmly believe this. And there's a saying that I didn't make up, but I'm going to quote it, is that at least maybe before the super intelligent AI part, right? That's a whole different thing. But up till then, it's not AI that's going to replace so much humans. It's humans working with AI will replace humans who don't.
Okay.
That is key.
Okay.
Learn how to interact with it. It takes some adjustment, right? If you think of Star Trek and how does Kirk interact with the computer, it's not quite the same as with the human. It takes a little bit of a mind shift, and it also takes you have to kind of, if you look down your nose at this technology, which a certain number of people do, then you're limiting yourself. Your perspective is limiting yourself. And so there's a mindset, there is a figuring out how to use this tool. I just put a new tool in your tool chest that you've never seen before. How do you use it?
Okay.
But it'll make you better at what you do if you use it right. And yeah, it's just a force amplifier.
Well, let's talk about uses in terms of education, right? Home life and the workplace in the time that we have remaining in this program. I want to start with education, and Jackie, with you, specifically when it comes to things like assessments and evaluations. Tell us about that.
Well, it's a great question. So my team here at UNO has the privilege to support faculty across the entire campus, some who feel very comfortable with technology and some who would rather not, right? But will be forced to use it. So including Victor, right? I think it's perfectly natural to be sort of afraid of a technology that's changing as quickly as this one. My team is just trying to support faculty in using technology to advance their goals. But one of the things that we've seen with this project in particular is we're not trying to get to a place where we're saying, oh, prohibit its use, right? We're afraid of this, or try to find ways where we can flag if a student's using it. We don't really want to do that. And it's because we know that our goal here at a college campus is to help, get students ready for the workplace and their careers and their lives. So if we take that stance on a campus with assessment and evaluation to say, oh, we want to flag if it's being used and say, no, that doesn't work, we know that's not positioning anyone for future success, right? So what we're really trying to do is to help faculty and students really understand the best way to use it, to Victor's point, as a tool in their toolbox.
Well, I can imagine I can imagine the staff, the faculty working with the students. You have this generation who basically raised on technology. I would think that they're not quite as intimidated as maybe somebody like me. So I see the benefits, obviously, in the evaluation assessment realm, but also just educator and student having to interact. I mean, is that making sense? That they have that opportunity to come together and work together on this, yeah?
Absolutely, and I think one of the ways that we've, done that is just by even focusing on a prompt book. What are some really great ways to ask questions? How do you frame a question as a launch point to then begin to work on writing the rest of your paper, right? But I think that's a really great example of what you're talking about.
Okay.
I would like to jump in and sort of give kudos to Jackie and her group about it, because it's more than just college kids, right? There is an enormous workforce that is post-college, and they have to kind of gear up to this too. This is critical. So I've given a variety of talks where people come up to me and say, okay, you're doing it at school, but what about us?
Right.
And so her group is, through their micro-credentialing program, is addressing the what about us.
Well, and I do want to talk about that as well, and we may as well just talk about it right now in terms of what you're doing in higher education to help prepare those who are going to be going out into the workforce, Jackie. So let's just go ahead and talk about that now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like I was saying, I mean, we know and really embrace that it's our number one goal to get people career ready, but also life ready, right? And so to your point that this is going to infiltrate every part of someone's life, right? Whether it's, hey, I can plan a vacation easier now, right? I used to maybe use a travel agent years ago. Then I started doing my own research online. Now I can just ask ChatGPT, what would you do for 7 days in Italy? And it's going to spit me out something that's an amazing starting point that then I can work back from, right? So when we think about our role as higher education in doing that, we've just started really from scratch in launching workshops and discussions where faculty members like Victor and others from other disciplines are coming to the table to talk about how they're experimenting with it. And I'll say in the 15 years I've been here doing work with a variety of technologies we use in teaching, these are some of the best attended workshops that we've had. And I think it's just because of that genuine curiosity of, hey, I see that this is really changing what I'm doing here as an educator or as a student, but how? And how can I do it really well? And how can I embrace it and use it in my career?
What are you seeing or finding to be the greatest stumbling block? As you're bringing people together, anytime you bring people together at a table, they're all coming from different walks. What do you find in your experiences to be kind of that little bump you got to get over?
Yeah, I think, and Victor I'm sure has a lot to add here, but one of the things I think we've answered a lot on a college campus is the idea of something taking the place of something else. So 25 years ago, we started experimenting on this campus with online education. And one of the key questions I've gotten in those last years is, yeah, that's great, but I don't want to lose my room full of college students to do this online, right? So there's always kind of this notion of will doing something new replace something existing that I love and cherish, right? So to me, that's still the stumbling block with this, right? Is to say, how can I adapt and use and learn without having it replace things that I hold very dear? But I'd love to hear your thoughts on it too, Victor.
So I would say that it's turning education, it's going to redefine what it means to get an education. And the opportunities to do cool stuff are enormous. And there are ways to engage, incorporate this kind of technology in a learning experience where you far exceed what you would have done before, but the nature of the assignments have to change. So if you give pre-ChatGPT, pre this kind of technology, you say, in computer science, for example, a good programming assignment is an incredibly clearly written problem, right? There's no ambiguity. It's very precise, very concise. Well, those problems, if they're good, you just plug them into ChatGPT and hit send, and you're done, right? It's like the answer in the back of the book at that point. So students who don't want to learn, this is a shortcut, right? This is too easy. But you can have more ambitious problems, and they're wonderful. So you can now shoot way higher than you could before. A problem that might take half a semester now can be an assignment, right? This is a whole different thing, and the stuff that you learn, right, is quite remarkable. And I mean, I work with it literally all day, every day kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so the stuff that I've been able to do, the force multiplier that it has done for me is just astonishing. Ideas that I would never pursue before, because like I don't have time. It's a cute idea, but I don't have time to do it. Suddenly now is within reach. So now I can do it.
So Victor, I have to ask you, when you're in a space, whether it's just with one other person or a room filled with people, you obviously, this is your wheelhouse, you have a background in it, you have a passion for it, you have an ambition about you. Not everybody feels that way, right? So I'm just wondering how you leave those spaces sometimes, and if you just feel like, if you would just get there with me, right?
Right.
I mean, talk about that a little bit too, because you talk about the education for the student changing, but the educator is also having to do that as well. And I would imagine the two of you were obviously very instrumental in getting them there. So talk about that a little bit, being that person in the room who's like, come on, we got to get this done. And others going, hold on, not so fast.
Yes. Yeah. So it is, there is sort of, there's this, with all technology adoption, right, there's this technology adoption curve where you have the early adopters and the late adopters. And you also have, and I think I've seen a certain amount of this, the German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer said that all truth passes through 3 stages. And I would kind of modify that a little bit. All profound truth passes through 3 stages. It's ridiculed, it's violently opposed, and then it's accepted as being self-evident. So when you hear, I read articles where they describe ChatGPT as a chatbot that's vomiting upwards, seriously, right? So that's in this ridiculed phase, right? And then there's the other ones where like, we must ban it. That's the violently opposed, right? We can't have it in class. We can't use it in companies. That's the violently opposed stage. And then finally it's like, well, of course, this is always the right thing, right? So people are in different places on that spectrum. And the problem is, and this is a serious one, that normally you have a certain amount of time, you have several years to kind of like get past your stuff and get to the place where you need to be. But the problem with this technology is it evolving so quickly. It is unbelievable. They used to say this about regular computer technology, Moore's law and doubling every 18 months and stuff like this. And that was amazing. And it really was. And this is completely different. It's way faster than that.
So Jackie, I have to ask, because I read several articles, and one of the questions that continues to come up is, will AI replace humans?
Yeah.
Right? How do you respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer is no. And it's just because there's so many things that are so quintessentially human, right? The idea of counseling and consulting and policy making, right? I think it's a tool, certainly, but I don't think it's something that we need to jump to, these profound conclusions that it will, replace humans, right? So when we think about other times we've asked this question, we asked, will machines place humans back with the Industrial Revolution? We asked with the first computers, right? We even asked questions with things like, will Amazon replace mom and pop stores in my local town, right? To me, that's really just kind of the wrong question. To me, it's how can we use AI to really free up some of the more mundane tasks that we do so that people can focus on more advanced tasks, more applied tasks, but also things that are ultimately, like Victor just said, more rewarding, more fulfilling, more purposeful. To me, that's the shift that we're gonna see. It's not this fear-based, is this over? It's much more of a, how can I shift with it? And again, Victor said this so well earlier, a person who uses AI versus a person who does not use AI.
Yeah, interesting. We have about 3 minutes left, right? The job market. And thank you for that response, because I think that is, you're looking at it the right way, the healthy way, the optimistic but realistic way. So what would you say, we have, again, about 3 minutes, in terms of the job market and those people up and coming who are going to want to be working in this realm, right?
Right. So I believe that pretty much all jobs, all careers will have an AI component to them. So I think you're going to need to embrace this technology. Now, an interesting thing that Sam Altman said in an interview with Bill Gates is that, when AI first came around, they thought it was going to go for the blue-collar jobs first and then work its way up and may never reach creative art, right? And then, he sort of remarked that actually it's happening the other way around. art, right? And now it's going after white collar jobs, and it's the robotics that's making the physical tasks that are lagging behind. But if you look at what's happening, for example, in Vegas, the union negotiations, it's because robots are the next wave that are coming into this. And even if you go down to the Hilton downtown, there's a little robot running around navigating through the audience, navigating through the people in the lobby delivering stuff, right? Wow. That's already, and they have these in France, they have them in hospitals helping out nurses and stuff. And the fact that the unions in Vegas said they're worried about being replaced, right, in significant ways, the stuff is on the horizon. So I would say, yeah.
But we're seeing it as a top 3 skill. So when we look at what skills do you need for the future, we ask this question a lot as a college campus producing graduates, right? We're seeing data analytics as a really high in-demand skill. We're seeing specific software expertise, and then we're seeing AI, just understanding of AI. So it's huge. And Victor's right, it's across all the fields. It's not just IT, it's also real estate and sales and marketing and graphic design. So we see it as an exciting time, but in terms of, workforce development and top skill, it's right up there.
Wow, talking with Jackie Lindberg and Victor Winter today about artificial intelligence. We have a graphic we're going to put up for our viewers for people who want more information about this topic. Wow, it's everywhere, but these are some of the things we referenced during the program: wikipedia.org, medium.com, and unomaha.edu. That number there actually belongs to Dr. Winter. So 402-554-2003. 15 seconds, final thoughts.
Exciting times ahead. Keep an eye on ChatGPT 5.
Okay, I want to thank the two of you for joining us and sharing your time and expertise, and for being part of what sounds like a little bit scary for me, but exciting future in this world.
Very
so
exciting.
Thank you very, very much.
Absolutely.
And thanks to our students who are working so hard behind the scenes, and of course, to all of you for watching. We will see you next week.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television in the School of Communication. More information and program archives can be found at nebraskapublicmedia.org/considerthis. If you'd like to share your comments about this program, call the UNO School of Communication at 402-554-2600 during regular business hours. Or send an email to cwyatt@unomaha.edu.